Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Now it is. Oops. Okay. Today's meeting was noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in review and recommending capacity for comprehensive plan amendments, text amendments to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, rezonings, and planned developments. The commission has decision-making authority on road name change requests, public project reviews, appeals of administrative decisions on final plats and subdivision matters, as well as other matters pursuant to Chapter 29, Title 6, Section 6-29-340 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina as amended. If you wish to speak at today's meeting, please fill out the sign-in sheet by the door. Okay. My name is Cindy Floyd. I'm chair of the commission, and for those who cannot see the nameplates, to my right, I have Luke Morris, Pete Pilatus, Marlena Davis, and Adam McConnell. Mr. Morris is newly appointed, so we welcome him today. To my left, I have David Kent, Warwick Jones, Logan Davis, and Suzanne Chavis. Seated to my right is attorney Mark Bell, and seated to my left, Joel Evans, Director of Zoning and Planning. So Joel, would you please introduce the staff?
Yes, Andrea Melisek, the Deputy Director, is here. Emily Wynn, who will be presenting the cases today. Marcia Miller over to my left, and Savannah Murray, and Emily Piggott as well. And Monica Eustace, one of my new planners, is here in the audience.
Okay. I would like to remind you that in order to get a good recording of the meeting for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones, and please do not talk above one another. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 11th, 2022 meeting and workshop. Is there a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Second.
Oh, I believe. You got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess go to the
Okay,
first
or
case.
can we call for the vote for the approval or disapproval?
Commissioner Chavis.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan Davis.
Aye.
I think she needs to cut off her microphone.
Aye. Chair Foley.
Aye.
Commissioner Warwick Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Kent.
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell.
Abstain.
Vice Chair Flowers.
Aye.
And Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay. The next agenda item is a request to amend PD 152 Angel Oak Plantation to PD 152A Buckland Plantation to allow for different lot configurations and additional waterfront lot, community docks, and updates to meet wetlands, stormwater, and current plan development requirements. Emily Wynn will give us the staff presentation.
Good afternoon. Today you'll be hearing a request to amend Plan Development 152, the Buckland Plantation Plan Development, to PD 152A, also the Buckland Plantation Plan Development. This property is located on Johns Island on Belvedere Road, and it is approximately 118.55 acres. There is a lengthy zoning history with regard to this parcel. In 1994, the property making up the subject parcels was Zone AG8, Rural Agricultural, and this zoning was maintained when the county adopted the Zoning and Land Development Regulations in 2001. There have been multiple zoning permits that have been issued throughout the 2000s for single-family residential, other auxiliary buildings, clearing and grubbing, and the demolition of a hunting hut. Since 1994, property lines have been reconfigured, which combined 3 separate parcels to create what is now tax map 249000013. Over the last 2 decades, several rezoning attempts were also made. In 2007, an applicant requested a rezoning for TMS 249000005 from AG8, rural agricultural, to AGR, rural residential, but the request was withdrawn prior to the Planning Commission meeting. Later in 2007, the owner and the applicant again requested to rezone both the subject parcels from AG8 to AGR, but withdrew the application at the Planning Commission meeting. In 2008, an applicant requested a rezoning to PD 137, but withdrew the application prior to going to Planning Commission meeting. And in 2009, that same applicant applied for a comprehensive plan amendment request to amend the future land use designation for both properties from rural agricultural to agricultural residential. This request was recommended for disapproval by the Planning Commission and tabled by County Council until a PD request was made. And later in 2009, the same applicant requested to rezone to PD 140, which was to allow for 73 lots, but the request was disapproved. In 2015, a new applicant successfully rezoned both subject parcels to the current PD 152, known as Buckland Plantation. Here is the property as seen in the county as a whole. Here's the future land use map. The future land use designation for these 2 parcels is rural agricultural. Here's the current zoning. As you can see, it's currently PD. Here's an aerial view to the north and to the south. You'll see that towards the top, there is a small residence that exists on the property right now. These are photos of the site from Chisholm Road and Belvedere Road at the intersection with Chisholm Road, and the adjacent properties. So they are requesting to change some of the allowed land uses. They are keeping the density capped at 28 lots or 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres. They are requesting 1 additional waterfront lot. As it stands now, there are 10 waterfront lots included in the total 28 lots. And the applicant is now requesting 11 waterfront lots included in the total 28 lots. All waterfront lots must still meet the AG8 waterfront development standards. They have gotten rid of the stable use, as well as resource extraction and vehicle storage for boats, RVs, campers, etc. They will still have community recreation, joint and private use docks, and are proposing a couple more community docks. Requested amendments to the PD include but are not limited to, again, updates to the wetland stormwater requirements, updating language to comply with current PD requirements, addition of revised conceptual plans to include more amenities such as community docks, 1 additional waterfront lot, updates to the flood zone information, a new traffic study and updated tree survey, new letters of coordination, and minor language adjustments for clarity. This is the existing conceptual plan as a part of PD 152. This is the proposed conceptual plan. The proposed amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the stated purposes of this ordinance, and staff does find that the comprehensive plan recommends rural agricultural use for the future land use for both subject properties. The intent for this area is to retain the visibility of agriculture while accommodating low levels of population growth, and recommends a maximum of 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres. The request to amend the plan development caps the density at 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres and provides ample open space to maintain the natural environment of the properties as much as possible. For these reasons, staff find that the proposed request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Staff finds that the proposed map amendment is compatible with existing uses in the area, given that the density will remain consistent with existing settlement patterns, and the amendments to the PD will not disrupt the existing rural character of the area. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions. In section 3.02, in section 3.02, in the home occupation sentence, revise and to and, include a statement that accessory structures are allowed pursuant to the applicable requirements of ZLDR Article 6.5, accessory uses and structures for the AG8 zoning district. Change the sentence that reads, there are no minimum lot area requirements for ADUs to state ADUs shall comply with the requirements of ZLDR Section 659 accessory dwelling units, with the exception of the minimum lot area requirement contained in that section. Clarify that office space located within any ADU must comply with the home occupation requirements of the ZLDR. State that the boat storage area is for residents of the development only. And delete future community amenities from the use table. Section 3.04, footnotes 1 and 2, combine these and state all lots that abut or contain an OCRM critical line shall comply with the waterfront development standards of the AG8 zoning district and the requirements of this table. Where in conflict, the waterfront development standards of the AG8 zoning district shall apply. We received 1 letter in opposition to this request, and we received 11 letters outlining changes to the PD, including 2 letters from the Johns Island Task Force. And this request was notified as required, and that is the request.
Thank you for that presentation. We appreciate the staff's comprehensive report. Are there any questions for the staff from members of the commission? Ms. Chavis?
I have a question. When you noted in there about 6.5 and the ADU, that no lot area requirement, but don't we have a lot requirement, lot size? You just can't go in there and put up any size unit or...
So we do have a lot size requirement in the ZLDR. Again, this is a PD, so they're allowed to tweak that requirement to how they see fit for their development. So they here are requesting to just be exempt from that particular requirement.
And it's not a minimum lot size for the property itself. In our rural districts, we require 1.5 times the minimum lot size in order to have an accessory dwelling unit. All this is saying is because their lots are so big anyways, they don't have to have 1.5 times that in order to do an accessory, as long as they can meet their building coverage.
Okay. And I think I saw in there somewhere where it said, talking about Chisholm Road, that there was no improvement, no road improvement. So there's not going to be any type of improvement to the road? And
They
that's gonna
received a
cause some impact.
Yes, ma'am. They did a traffic impact analysis, and there was no recommendation for an improvement to Chisholm Road.
So then there was no traffic count as well, and how much this is going to increase.
There was as a part of the traffic impact analysis, which I believe is included in the actual PD draft. So they did do the TIA, but it determined that there would not be any improvements needed to Chisholm Road.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for our staff? Adam?
I just need one piece of clarification. We took out in the PDD the opportunity for vehicle storage for boats and RVs and campers, yet we changed the language later on stating that, there's a statement in there regarding boat storage. So is boat storage still allowed or not?
So the way that it was listed in PD 152 as it exists now, anyone could come in and store a boat or RV. We're making it essentially an accessory use just for the residents. So they can store a boat in their driveway, that sort of thing.
Anyone else?
I just had a quick question. So originally the roads were going to be owned and maintained by Buckland HOA, but now there's an option to go or for the county to purchase them. that's just made at a later date and gives them the option, or does it give an obligation to the county?
It does not give an obligation to the county. So the language, we do make sure it's very specific to say that the county must accept the maintenance of the road if it's applied for. And you have to go through all the processes that are in place at the time of that application.
So now we're going to limit it to 2 minutes. You got the timer? Okay. Because of the number of people present today, we're going to limit anyone who's speaking to 2 minutes, and Ms. Milichek is going to handle the timing. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Okay. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in opposition to this request? Come forward and give us your name and address.
Speak as quickly as I can.
Okay.
My many neighbors on Johns Island and others that are here, thank you for being here. My name is Sylvia Hyman, and we live at 4045 Belvedere Road, right next to this property. And this is my husband, Aaron Hyman. I'm going to read as quickly as I can. But,
2 minutes.
Yes, okay, I'm hurrying. We've lived there 32 years, and my husband's family's been here for 4 generations. You know, our infrastructure is not capable of sustaining it. I mean, the traffic now, I have to plan when I come out off of Johns Island or on Johns Island. I think everybody agrees with that. So we faced flooding in areas where there was none until apartments choked the marshes and low-lying areas. You know, at the end of Limehouse Bridge, you can see that. This will soon become a place where people who made this area a place where folks want to come will be driven out of their relaxed living and thrown into the very atmosphere some of these new folks are running away from. This building frenzy will become the death of the Low Country as it was, a serene place where people were friendly because we weren't fighting traffic, dealing with neighbors right up under you, so that your neighbors nor you remember what coming home to little noise and unobstructed views is all about. And we've noticed crime on the rise. We haven't had a lot of that in this rural area. Some people say progress is good. Yes, to a point. When we first moved here, the property adjacent to us was zoned 1 house per 8 acres. Then Angel Oak asked for 1 house for every 8 acres. We agreed to that. Now Buckland's wants 1 house every 1 acre. So we don't really want Buckland at all. But our property butts right up against it, and the new configuration's worse than Angel Oak. Instead of 2 properties next to us, now it is proposed that 8 lots are right up next to us. And I'm done. It's okay. Honey.
Yeah, I'll continue. Aaron Hyman. Originally, the one that was there, 1 house for every 4 acres, we consented to. It was a hard battle, but they won. And now they're wanting to put 1 house for every acre. And there was 2 homes adjacent to my property. Now there's 8 right adjacent to my property. There's a gathering place right in my front yard where people will have a circle, you can see it on there, where they will be going to their boats. In the front of that is wetland, and on the back of that's wetlands. I assure you, I had pictures to give you that in the middle is all wetland also. My front yard is where there's 3 different options that we propose that they move their gathering place. That peninsula in the middle is all dry. Everything along the edge of that pond is dry land. If you all went today, I'd show you around. Even after a rain, I could show you it's dry. But this thing right in my front yard will say that activities of boat frolic is, you know, basically right in my front yard, and I disapprove of this thing happening. If I could just get a larger buffer, that they move that gathering place closer to the pond where it is really dry, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Jeff Hale. I'm an adjacent property on Grimble Creek across from the Buckland Plantation, or proposed Buckland Plantation. So we have 2 concerns. where we're at. One is with the docks and the number of docks, okay? And the other is the septic tanks and what could occur with the water quality. So let's start out with the docks. The Grimble Creek, if you look at the Charleston GIF, it'll show the creek, and it is a shallow creek, okay? And it's gotten worse. We've the community we're in, we've got an island that the Army Corps engineer owns, and they've been working on it because they're going to be doing some dredging. So we had a conversation with those fellows. They're getting, they tell us there's a lot more silt coming out. That's why they're dredging, and we're seeing it in the creek. So we have no water at low tide. And so when you start putting in docks and the way the creek and the creek channel meanders, these docks coming in are going to have a direct effect on that channel because, you know, if the creek goes over towards away from or towards the dock, then in essence, the docks that they propose on the Grimble Creek could conceivably block the entrance to the creek, so we wouldn't be able to get out. And the creek as it stands now is you can navigate it at high tide, okay? So we're concerned about that. We'd like to see the number of docks reduced. I think they're going with 5 on one side and 6 down the creek. We'd like to see that to reduce to at least 2 or 3. The other part is the septic tanks. Okay, you've got 7 areas of wetland on the property, 7 areas. If you look at their exhibit, sorry, well, there you go. Go ahead.
I defer, so my 2 minutes to him.
Great, thank you. So you've got 7 areas of wetland on this property, and that leaves off the marsh piece on 2 of the 4 sides, okay? They've tried to build on this property over the years, and everybody runs into the same issue. And that is, you know, having enough property to actually build on, because like I said, there are 7 pieces of wetland on the property as it stands. Property is low, so we've had a lot of rain as of late, and it's only going to get worse. So our concern is that wetland's going to get flooded out to some degree, and then you're going to have seepage, and then we got another problem. So we're looking for a reduction in the number of river or creekside lots, the docks, and the actual lots, because obviously there's an issue not only from the docks blocking navigation on the creek, but also flooding that you know is going to occur as time goes on, and then we have seepage on the septic tanks. And I don't care what anybody says, it's a possibility. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Matt Brown. I am one of the 6 people who own property on Belvedere Road. And I was kind of surprised to see that this was the address was on Belvedere, because prior this has been called the Chisholm Road development. There's only 6 of us, and there's that pretty picture that you guys showed of Belvedere at Chisholm. So those right there, that gravel road, one of my concerns would be that absolutely no construction traffic go down that road. We have a lot of beautiful oaks, and I mean, it's a gravel road that we actually maintain. That's not, I mean, that's a private road. So I would want to make sure that that wasn't damaged in any way. The drainage is a huge situation in that area. For generations, water has flowed from this side where Belvedere is through that property into Grimble Creek and the Stono. And right now, there's a ditch right next to my property that is slam full of water because it can't make it through. And that's just because of the ditches that have all been dug through there over the years, haven't been maintained. And my concern would be that without a proper stormwater study or runoff study, that what ends up happening is anything from that area ends up backing, kind of shedding off, both to his point of septic issues, Grimble Creek, water flooding that side of Belvedere Road. And I think the other thing that was in a lot of those letters that were submitted to you you folks that we would ask that there's a buffer between, there's only 6 of us that actually live on that road that are actually adjacent to this property. And I would love to see the developers concede at least 100-foot buffer zone so that those of us that have lived on that beautiful rural road for all these years are not just subjected to looking at the back of somebody's house. I understand progress is progress. Traffic, there's not a huge number of houses in here. I don't know that that's worth fighting, but thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Henry Rivers. My family lives on Belvedere Road as well. We've lived there for many generations. Belvedere Road, that section of Belvedere Road is owned by my family. And that section of Belvedere Road is owned by my family. I'd just like to echo the sentiments of Aaron Hyman and the previous speaker that we would be looking for a fairly substantial buffer between our existing properties in Belvedere Road, that section of Belvedere Road, and any developments. And my father prohibited logging trucks from using that road, never granted any right-of-way to anybody, and we're not inclined to do so either. We think it would be a mistake. I'm concerned about traffic, but mainly we're concerned about a higher density of housing. So I'd just like to echo the sentiments of Aaron and Sylvia.
Thank you.
My name is John Gillespie, and I live at 202 Old Hickory Crossing. My property is adjacent, or on the other side of the creek, to the new project. And I want to reiterate Jeff's concerns, and they're my concerns also, is that the creek really can't support any more additional traffic. You can only navigate the creek right now. It's very narrow, and really at only at high tide or right around high tide. And to say that there's a channel in that creek is really, that's really quite an overstatement, because it's it's hard to navigate now. And having additional traffic and docks there, I don't see how it would work. And that's my main concern. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. John Sloger with the Johns Island Task Force. You've just heard from 5 adjacent property owners, not folks a mile away, but adjacent property owners, and they have all had concerns. And I kind of try to summarize them as I was listening to them. One is provide at least a 100-foot buffer to all adjacent properties. We're in the rural part of the county. Sounds pretty reasonable. No more than 10 waterfront lots. The current PD, which was done, as Emily said, in 2015, 7 years ago, restricted it to 10 waterfront lots. This is kind of the death by 1,000 cuts with PDs that, we often are up here about this. Someone comes in with a PD, it's hard fought, the community fights it, and then a couple of years later they come back and they want something else. 10 houses, waterfront, at most. If they want to go for fewer than 10, that'd be fantastic. Same way with the docks. And we heard about Grimble Creek and all the issues on the creek. 2015, they were allowed to have 10 docks. Should be the same way, 10 docks with no different types of docks, just those same 10 that they had in the original 2015 plan. So again, those to me are the 3 things before you were to say to approve this, I'd love you guys to say you approve it with these changes in terms of the buffer, the limiting the number of docks, and the waterfront property. But finally, I also want to mention the comment about traffic. If you read the traffic study, this little development with 28 houses is going to increase the amount of traffic on Chisholm Road by 15%. Read the study. It's in their study. So only 28 houses on Chisholm Road increases the capacity by 15%. This is another one of those death by 1,000 cuts. When the next one comes before you, it only increases it by 15%, and they don't need a traffic analysis or anything else. So again, keep that in mind as you look at all these. But again, those 3 things: 100-foot buffer, and limiting the number of waterfront lots, and the number of and types of docks, what's currently in the PD. Thank you very much.
Is the property owner or the developer here?
I'm the applicant representing them, ma'am.
Okay. You want to speak? I didn't You speak when I ask for people in favor.
Good afternoon.
Minutes.
Thanks. My name is Todd Richardson from Synchronicity, representing the joint partnership of Nest Homes and the current property owner. I appreciate everyone coming out. We had a community meeting where 25 folks came out, most of whom you heard from today, and we really appreciate that. Just a couple things. This is an existing, currently approved PUD with approved engineering plans, septic plans, road plans, everything ready to go. It is not the intent of the developer to pursue this plan. No equestrian use. We feel like that's a high use. It's got 2 accesses onto Chisholm Road. The idea is to get off of Chisholm. If you can look at our master plan, we moved lots off of there, reduced it. There was a frontage road on top of that. And this also now meets more of the current ZLDR. We face higher stormwater standards and septic standards, and the docks would go through the same OCRM DHEC process for review and approval, which includes an analysis of the creek, not only for proposed docks, but also existing docks to make sure that it's safe and navigable. What I just want to point out is we are not proposing a change in the density. It's still 1 to 4. It's still 28 lots. I'm sorry if that was confusing, but we are not changing that in any way. We have our waterfront lots also meet the county standard. You have to do calculations for a minimum lot width, area, and all those things, and we meet all of those. The traffic is the same as it was with the previous PD. We were brought in really to fix this PD and clean it up and make a better use that has less impact, not only within the development, but also on Chisholm Road, and that is our intent. I can speak more if you have any questions. I'll be happy to.
What about the buffers that they mentioned?
The buffers, so we've added, we have a 50-foot buffer along Chisholm, and we've already created the way to have a buffer along the folks on Belvedere. We'll be happy to look at that. We have no issue with that. And also, too, questions came up from Matt about drainage. We have a civil engineering local firm, Kimley Horn, on that. As soon as we are ready, we will proceed with that. We have to meet all new stormwater standards that the currently approved PUD and those engineering drawings do not have to face. So you're getting a more thoughtfully engineered program that is more responsible with this. And again, we have a currently approved PUD. We're not raising density. We're reducing land impact. We're reducing traffic impact with entrances on Chisholm Road.
Okay, back to the buffer. You said, tell me again what you said about the buffer.
We have a 50-foot along Chisholm, and then we've already made a pathway. If you see those lots that abut Belvedere, we already have a 50-foot area right there that we'll happily add a buffer for those homes.
Okay, so you would agree to adding a buffer along Belvedere?
Yes, ma'am. If you see the exhibit right there, we already have that paved out because we have an excess of open space too. And so we have plenty of room to add that. So we'll be happy to add that. We think that a densely packed 50-foot buffer would be substantial.
Okay, I think they want a 100-foot buffer though.
I know that they asked for that, and we'll explore that. Here's the issue. We're also working very hard to not remove any trees. Our wetlands have increased since the previous PD, and we are sensitively locating home sites with a lot of existing trees and forest canopy. So some of those lots get really tight where we're meeting that lot minimum and we're situating houses in certain places. I have concerns with a couple of those that 100 would go against the principles of this plan redesign. So
Can I say one thing to the gentleman here, just when the picture's up?
I'm sorry.
That's my home right there next to his roundabout on your picture.
It's in our front yard.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Right there to the left of their
See
roundabout.
that little house? That's us.
That's a home there.
we'll be happy to re-examine that, Mr. and Mrs. Hyman. And again, that's put in for fire standards. And so we'll be happy to look at that. Look, we're not trying to impact anyone. This property has been here for a long time. A lot of people are very passionate about it. We have a room full. We're passionate about it too. We're passionate about doing the right thing. We're a local firm, and we help people clean these things up all the time. We'll be happy to take a look at that. You have my commitment. We don't want to impact y'all at all. Okay? Yes, sir.
Okay.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, may I ask my question?
You have-
Yes, ma'am.
It was also mentioned about navigating the creek and with the number of docks that you have included in the plan. Are there any adjustments that you can make to that?
We're going to study that further. Again, that's a process that is reviewed by OCRM and DHEC. We also, I'm a big proponent of property rights, the same as those folks who were fortunate to build before us and have waterfront access on that. That's great. And all we're asking is for these residents is to have that same opportunity for pursuit of property rights as well. Ultimately, it's not even the responsibility of this body to say if that creek is navigable or accessible. It's DHEC, and we all follow those standards. And so our goal is, again, all of us in every single municipality in the Charleston region, we all have in our comprehensive plans access to waterfront, not only for public, but for folks who have property along the water. All we're saying is that we would like those same rights that have been given to everyone around us. We will be happy to study that further. We're not committing to this is exactly how we're going to do it. We're saying we want to access the same property rights as everyone else.
Well, I don't think we're trying to make the decision of another agency, but it is a concern to the people, and so therefore it's a concern to us. And we are also supposed to try to preserve the culture of the community as much as possible.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have a lot of that going on around town now, that the binyas
Yes.
are being overtaken by the cumyas.
Right.
For lack of a better way of putting it. And so we have to be concerned about that.
I would.
Have your right to develop your everybody has the right to develop their property, but also to consider that these are the folks that are going to be your neighbors.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
you want to be able to work together.
Right.
So.
And we've got binyas and cumyas on the other side of the creek too.
Mhm.
So we want that same fair balance of appreciation. I completely agree with you.
Mhm.
We will restudy that further.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got a number here. One of the questions was the tree survey, what the impact might be. Well, you sort of answered that question. And I forget the adjective you used, but it was sort of responsibility and whatever. So you've got some grand trees maybe, more than you anticipated, and it could create building problems. How many lots would you lose if you recognize these grand trees and to be able to meet the building conditions of, 1 per 4 acres?
So all of the grand trees are located on that graphic in front of you in grades A to F.
Right.
And so we have even the way that we worked the road. So you're only seeing the right-of-way there. The actual paved surface, we anticipate to remove no trees. We have some in there that are of poor health and need to be removed for hazard purposes. But every single lot here can successfully be built without having to take down a tree. So all those white squares that you see there, sir, are the projected home sites that fit within all those
And
standards.
I don't understand it. So what is the problem then with the tree survey? If you've got no grand trees and the trees are not going to get in the way, or those that can be removed legally, so what's the issue?
We don't have an issue. I don't know where the issue came from. We had the property completely resurveyed, including all the trees.
Okay,
that you're
but
seeing.
sorry, then I'm referring to the buffer. You said the buffer.
The buffer
If
is
you
a
went to 100
supplemental new buffer, yes.
Okay, if
So
you
we're-
went to 100 feet, then you would say it would make an impact.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. So the 100-foot buffer, what we wanted to do, if you can see the lots that are up on the left before they get up near the Hyman's property, and I believe those are lots 18 and 19. So we have those homes off of the roadway because, again, we're trying to have a very low-key feel in the neighborhood. Those homes are further back. By putting 100 feet there, and even on lot 20, it starts to impact where we have those locations of those trees, of those homes with those trees.
Okay, so if you sacrificed a lot, would you be able to do it?
If we sacrifice the lot.
A lot.
I think what we would need to do is do a study on what we would include in that buffer and what we could do with an additional 75 or 100 feet. So I would just say to you, sir, respectfully, it needs more study.
Okay. Can I continue? Can I continue? May I continue? Okay. I may be blind, and I am actually in one eye, but I can't see any reference to the actual limitation of docks, waterfront lots, but not the actual private docks. Am I missing something there? Have we imposed a limit on the number of private docks?
I'd say that our docks meet the county minimum standard for this property, waterfront.
But you're asking for additional docks from the original PD.
And the reason is the program of the original was more internal with an equestrian program. You had large stables, you had equestrian runs, you had maintenance facilities, you had other things that was more internally focused. The goal of this developer is, and they do waterfront, sensitive waterfront communities, is to have more of a waterfront focus, more of a conservation focus in the center, and no commercial program of horse or equine or any other related, no boat storage, anything like that. So we're taking a lot of those commercial things out. With that comes the request to add one more lot and one more dock on the water.
So it's only one more dock
Correct.
From what to what?
From 10 to 11.
And if there were no restrictions imposed by the PD on docks, you could come to the county and ask for more docks? Or would you have to go through another agency?
As far as I know, this is the maximum intent. We don't, frankly, it's very tight once you meet those standards, working around trees, wetlands, existing ponds. There's no intention to, remove a limitation and keep going. This is what we're requesting.
And another question, and I guess it's perhaps not so relevant, but you have a proposed community dock. But there's it seems to me that's just access to a pond. It doesn't give you any access to a creek or waterway. Is that?
So that's more if you're going to be going out, viewing the water, being picked up by friends on a boat. That's really, like, you may not have Friends with Boat program is a great way to live in Charleston. So I think that's more of the intent of it.
I missed that. So it's a meeting place for people?
Yeah, so sometimes a community dock is a great place for a boat to pull up and pick someone up, but there's no intention to have boats there stored. It's a pierhead out in the water. You've got usually have a gangplank down to a floater, a couple posts to tie into, hop on board, get picked up and go.
Okay, I hear you. As my colleague here pointed out, there was 2 community docks. I was looking at one, and maybe it's my eyesight, which was on a pond. So scrub that question.
Emily, would you make sure I understand what they have by right by the existing PD versus what they're changing? So I want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Absolutely. So as it stands now, as far as I know, and Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no explicit request for number of docks. All docks simply have to comply with the, I believe, AG8 waterfront development standards, which includes compliance with OCRM DHEC standards. So there is no, as it stands now, there's no cap on the number of docks either. It's just kind of what is shown in this conceptual, as it stands now, versus this conceptual. And again, these are conceptual plans. So this might not be exactly how the plan is executed. But as it stands now, there's no cap on the number of docks. As long as the docks can meet the AG8 waterfront development standards, as well as OCRM DHEC requirements, you can have a dock.
In the comparison that you have here, though, you say in the PD 152, it lists 10 waterfront lots.
Right. Those are lots,
Okay.
as opposed to docks. And I do also want to clarify that docks is different than a marina.
Right.
So a dock will not have a boat sitting at it or multiple boats sitting at it. It is simply access to the water.
Okay, so then it has joint and private use docks and community docks.
Yes. So the community docks.
But there's no number on it, okay.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And I would just add that the minimum standards effectively set a maximum, because you have to have a minimum lot width over a certain amount of length, and you have to meet the minimum area standards of that lot. So that standard basically sets your cap.
So if you got so how does that work out? If you got 10 lots, you got 10 docks?
I guess effectively, I mean, it's really hard. Like you asked the question about the joint dock. We have that split between 2 lots. So that dock would have 2 slips. And that's another thing that I've been looking at in the meantime is could we look at consolidation of docks and go from single use to joint use? So you have to do a projection when you come out, and there are certain standards for that. And then we're also looking at, we have trees along the waterfront of a lot of these homes, so we're working around those and meeting those projections. So your factors, you have probably 4 or 5 factors that really start to limit that. So you can't just go crazy. It's not docks gone wild. You can't just have 100 docks here.
You need to understand too, these people are looking at what the limits would be.
Right.
That the community is. So when you say, well, we're going to look at that and we'll take that under consideration, that really doesn't help them a lot because you might take it under consideration, decide you don't want to do it.
Understood. I can say that everything we've proposed to you with this plan, which is in the PD revision, is the maximum request that we are asking for. And that is meeting all the county standards to do that. We have no intention to exceed anything in any way that is in front of you. I'm on record with that. And this is also part of the PD. If there's a change in this, it has to come back before this body.
Madam Chair.
Kent, Mr. Kent, since I interrupted,
Okay.
since I so rudely interrupted you, go ahead.
So make sure I'm understanding the difference between what you have now and what you're asking for is basically one more lot.
One more lot, one more dock.
Conversation, basically.
That's
One more waterfront lot,
Waterfront
just to
lot, yes.
confirm. So they're not increasing the number of lots at all.
correct.
They are changing the lot configuration and adding one more waterfront lot with a total of 28 lots.
And they're giving up the resource extraction,
Yes.
correct?
There's no mining going on here.
And then the vehicle storage,
That's gone.
that's gone.
The stables is also gone.
Stables are gone.
But that's just
Correct.
outside storage.
Right, so those 3 things they're giving it.
Basically put in, you can have your boat in your yard. And then we'll come up with architectural standards for the yards where you can't have it out on cinder blocks right in front of the road. We're going to have measures in there. People start to go nuts. So we set these things up so that it will be the intent to be, a very nice, graceful, low impact, low country neighborhood.
Anything else, Mr. Kent? Okay, Ms. Chavis?
I'm hearing 2 different things here. One of the residents said that there was mining still going on. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. That there was still mining that was going on there, and you just said that there was no mining.
There's mining in the currently approved PUD, resource extraction. It's the last point there. We are removing that use from there.
Okay, and I think it was Mr. Hill that noted a concern about separate tanks and flooding and seepage. And have y'all addressed that concern, or do you see that as a problem in the future?
The way that I look at septic tanks on this property, I was out on the property Friday. We had a ton of rain. I did not see anything that concerned me in the areas where the septic fields are currently planned versus where they were proposed to be planned versus where they are currently approved. And so every other person who develops in the county out here has to have a septic tank, has to meet DHEC standards if they don't have access to sewer. And that's a large portion of parcels out here. So it's not like we're the first person
No,
to
we
come to the
Yeah.
county and ask for sewer permits. Septic permits. So we still have to meet those standards, which have also increased since 2015.
Okay. I think he was just concerned too about the flooding because of the development. It's going to change the flooding condition in that area as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, so I can speak to that. So we are required by not only Charleston County law, but also state law and actually federal law, that we cannot have any drainage or sedimentation leave our property onto any other properties. And also, one of the gentlemen, Matt, spoke. So right where his property is, water, frankly, comes from that side onto our property. We're also responsible to take care of that water as well. So that's through the many permitting agencies that we have to go to. Because right now there's a big irrigation ditch that basically runs, somewhat through the middle of the property.
Okay.
That's all the drainage improvement that has been done to this property. There's a ditch and I think some culverts along Chisholm. So we have to come in and bring it up to full drainage standards, stormwater standards, and septic standards to move it forward before we can get a land disturbance permit. So we're going to do more to this property to meet all those than has ever been done before.
Excuse me, if I just say just one second. I have photographs here we took just 2 days ago of the water,
All over
the whole strip beside our house on this property, it's standing. I've got photographs of it, and there's our house. That's where that turnabout would be. So unless you're gonna fill it, what's gonna happen then?
All water that comes on our property, we are responsible to handle. And that's what we have to
We
do.
originally moved, we had a septic, a drain field in my backyard 70 feet away. It quit working.
All
Now
right,
my drain
okay.
field is.
Excuse me, we can't be, if y'all need to have a conversation, we probably need to wait till after the meeting and y'all can get together with him, but we need to move on here because other people, does anybody have any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, just
Okay.
one. In reference to the two turnabouts, can the buffers apply to them as well? Or the way it's drawn on here, it looks like they're right up against the property lines. If this is approved as is that where they would go, or are they subject to setbacks?
They could go there unless you put a condition on it that you wanted a X number of foot buffer.
Yeah, and the reason, sir, why that's there is it's going around a wetland for now. So we can look at reorienting and relocating and pulling that back.
Well, and the second one as well, I'm having a hard time with the map, but it looks like it's also right up against somebody's property.
Yes, that's a fire truck turnaround. And we can look at, we pulled out of that natural area. Originally, there was a road cutting through the trees in the wetlands, going in front of and behind the lots that face Chisholm. So we can look at relocating
There
that
was,
too.
and the road was set back from the property line as best I can tell.
Right, so we can take that required turnaround down and around and into that pocket of trees to keep it off of Chisholm, but that will extend further into that area.
So if a buffer's agreed upon, we can apply it to those as well. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
I guess it's really not a question for you, but just a comment that I think one should make sometime. Is some of the speakers have indicated that the density is too much and that Johns Island can't stand it and whatever. I happen to agree with all of that. Unfortunately, well, no, erase that. It happens that we have a PUD that is in existence, so the applicant or the owners have the right to this development. And there's nothing we can do to cut that down at this stage, so you have to live with it. I also agree, and I think I probably speak for other members here, the reference to a death by 1,000 cuts. It's an aggravating thing, the history of PUDs and applicants coming back before us and asking for minor amendments, and some keep on asking for minor amendments, and yes, they are minor cuts. But then it also becomes an issue and a difficult one. I mean, yes, this is a minor cut, but it's not the death of the project, and it may not be excessive bleeding, but nevertheless, it still is a cut, and we have to wrestle with that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else?
So can I wanted to add to that because I wanted to ask Joel and or legal, then in knowing that there's a PUD in place already and being concerned because I heard that magic word intent. And intent means that things can change without having to come back here. Correct me.
The way things are looking right now, I was wondering if you would be willing to defer this to another meeting and maybe get back with the community and see if you could work out some of these things, some of these concerns, and maybe have firmer plans in place than it seems like you have now. Like I said, we've had people come in and say, well, that's not our intent, but that really doesn't answer the questions of the folks here. And if you could say, like, we can't do a 100-foot buffer, but we can do a 75-foot buffer. If we could do something like that with all of these issues that have come up, and maybe be clearer with the docks. I know you say DHEC really controls that, and it's your intent to only do so many, but if you could say, like, we want 11 lots and 11 docks, that would, or, and 1 or 2 community docks. If you could just give us a little bit firmer numbers, I think everybody would have a clearer idea of what the thing's going to look like, and it would be easier, because, based on what I'm hearing today, I really don't know how the commission's going to go. So.
Understood. And I just want to speak to the use of intent. Is we came in with the vision. We are new to this project in this entire history. Our intent is to lower impact, and we're changing a focus from an equestrian use to more of an ecological and waterfront experience. We have less impact internally, and we simply want to add one more use to the waterfront. Certain things in here, we are very defined in what we are asking for. Number of lots, number of waterfront lots, number of docks. We'll be happy to explore deferral, and we can take a look at these items. We'll be happy to have another meeting and get back together on these things. We're here to be good neighbors. We're not trying to. A lot of the times when I respond with the word intent is because I'm usually correcting a lot of misinformation that is stirring about. This gets a lot of emotional response. I understand that. We're not raising the densities. We're turning things back in a lot of ways on the development side of things and the construction side of things that most folks don't see. I know that they're concerned. I've been at that stoplight. I totally get it. So we'll be happy to defer the item if that's what you all feel is best. We'll be happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all for your questions.
Need a motion?
Yeah, motion to defer.
I move the motion that to be
A second.
deferred.
Is there a second?
Right here.
Madam Chairman, for the benefit of the applicant, can we have some timeframes on his deferment so that way he knows how much time he's being offered?
How much time does he want?
And just for point of reference, when he does come back, we need time to review the changes and then look at the deadlines, because our deadlines for the planning commission meeting are 6 weeks in advance to give staff time to do all of our work. So, November, December would be the two earliest. November might be pushing it a little bit because that deadline's coming up soon.
So would you suggest December? Okay. Would that be acceptable to the applicant?
We feel like we could handle it sooner, but I do understand that Andrea and then the county have an extended review period for that. So it would be our intent to handle this speedily. I'm just curious, what are the meeting dates for November and for December?
Okay.
Please.
So would you
I believe it's November
put in your
10th.
motion to put in the
I'm sorry, I
December
couldn't
date?
hear that.
November 10th, I'm sorry.
What is the December?
Have up to December to come back.
Up to December,
Oh.
what?
Second.
The appeal to come before the commission.
December
They're up to December
To the December meeting of the planning commission.
meeting. Thank you.
And what are what are the deadlines for each one of those, please? 6 weeks.
Are we talking about the buffer? 'Cause it seems like
No, there were a
No,
number of,
anything
another,
else.
all of these concerns that they were talking about, the number of docks, the number of,
Well, they've proposed 11 docks laid out here
I
plus.
don't see that anywhere.
It's on the plan. It's enumerated. It's also in the document. So we're held by describing that graphically and also in the text.
And just to note again, as it stands now, there is no cap on the number of docks either.
Right, so it's what we put into the document that we're held to.
Then I assume
Isn't the language, my experience has been.
It is in the language. That's what I'm respectfully trying to say.
Okay.
It's both in text and it's on the graphics that are included in your
I
packets.
didn't see it on
and
the
ultimately,
text.
OCRM is going to decide if it's stopped.
Right.
Right, there's also specifically outside of the conceptual plan, there is a dock plan which enumerates the docks compared to the previous dock plan. So you can see there's a 2-page exhibit from the currently proposed and there's a 1-page exhibit for the proposed.
And just to clarify, it's going from 10 to 11.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's an addition of 1.
And it's been laid out that way.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to defer until the December meeting and a second?
Second. I second it.
Yeah, right. And can you call the roll to see if,
Commissioner Chavis,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan Davis,
Nay.
Mary Marlena Davis,
aye.
Chair Floyd, Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell, Vice Chair Pilatos,
Aye.
Commissioner Morris. The ayes have it.
And point of order clarification, the deferral is extended to December, but if we meet the deadlines for November, we are able to proceed. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, you too, Dan. Okay. Item on the agenda is a presentation regarding proposed amendments to the zoning and land development regulations. Emily?
Yes, so we have a number of proposed clarification amendments to the ZLDR today. Back in October of 2021, Council adopted amendments to the ZLDR that were developed through the ZLDR review project. The project began way back in March 2017 when the consultant developed a new historic preservation ordinance, which was adopted by Council in 2018, and developed a short-term rental ordinance adopted by Council also in 2018. And the update also did a basically overhaul of organization of the ZLDR. And since the adoption of these amendments in October 2021, staff has identified several clarifications that need to be made to assist with administering the ordinance. So again, a number of these have come about just from receiving permit applications and site plan review, subdivision review, things of that nature. The first amendment is to Article 4.2, Measurements, Computation, and Exceptions. We are looking to reinstitute the allowance for administrative setback reductions up to a 15-foot setback on lots created prior to October 26, which was the adoption of that CLDR amendments. When the front, interior, side, and rear setbacks reduce the buildable lot width of a lot less than 40 feet. The ZLDR amendments approved on October 26, 2021 reduced the threshold for these setback reductions to a 20-foot buildable lot width, creating the need for variances from the BZA on several existing lots that could qualify for administrative variances based on a 40-foot buildable width. The amendments also look to allow a 50-foot setback on corner and double frontage lots to be administratively reduced to 25 feet. The next amendment is to Section 4.63B, the AG 15 Agricultural Preservation District. This is to clarify that the density bonus of 1 dwelling unit per 3 acres for developments in the AG 15 along the critical line only applied to those properties that abut or contain a critical line. The typical density in AG 15 is one dwelling unit per 15 acres, but there is existing language to allow the higher densities for development that is along the critical line. This added language is really just a clarification that you only get the bonus density if the property abuts or contains the critical line. The next is to Chapter 4, Base Zoning Districts, and Chapter 6, Use Regulations. We are looking to clarify the density, intensity, and dimensional standards for dwelling units in non-residential districts. Multifamily dwellings attached, single-family attached duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes that are located in the community, commercial, and industrial zoning districts shall comply with the urban residential zoning district density, intensity, and dimensional standards. For single-family detached dwellings in the CC and I zoning districts, those properties located in the urban suburban area that have these zonings, the density, intensity, and dimensional standards of the UR zoning district shall apply. And in the rural area, the density, intensity, and dimensional standards of the AGR zoning district shall apply. Article 4.24, Waterfront Development Standards. We are looking to codify the way the minimum lot width and minimum lot standards for accessory dwelling units located along OCRM critical lines are being administered. The minimum lot width is measured and maintained through the entire depth of the parcel to the critical line. The distance between the accessory dwelling unit and the principal dwelling unit shall not be less than the sum of the minimum setbacks for the required zoning district. For example, if the ADU is located to the side of the principal dwelling unit, the sum of the side setback shall apply. If the ADU is located to the rear of the principal dwelling unit, the sum of the front and the rear setback shall apply. OCRM buffers that have been destroyed or disturbed must be replaced with native plant species suitable for saltwater tolerance, in addition to compliance with the landscaping and landscape materials standards of the ZLDR. Section 510.9A, the Ashley River Road Corridor Overlay District. We are looking to add low-density residential, R4, to the list of referenced uses. And this corrects an oversight from when the overlay zoning district was adopted. Section 515.6N, 515.6O, and 515.6P of the Main Road Corridor Overlay District. The following sections shall be screened by use of fencing in compliance with Section 946B1 or comparable landscaping. This is largely to clarify what the fencing materials should be and for when. So materials and equipment for heavy construction service or general contractor, special trade contractor, consumer and commercial repair service, and also open storage of vehicles and boats. For self-service storage facilities that abut lots in office, commercial, or industrial zoning districts, no building setback shall be less than 8 feet. Section 515.7A, also the Main Road Corridor Overlay Zoning District, clarify that the density, intensity, and dimensional standards of the zoning district in which a property was located prior to the adoption of the zoning overlay district on December 17, 2020, shall apply for single-family detached development. Table 611, the use table, and Chapter 12, definitions. We are adding pharmaceutical, fertilizer, and pesticide wholesaler to the use table, and to allow that use by special exception approval in the community commercial, rural industrial, and industrial zoning districts. Additionally, we are looking to allow manufacturing and production uses subject to conditions in the rural commercial zoning district. It's currently allowed in CC, RI, and IN. Conditions include all activities related to the specialized manufacturing uses shall be confined to a structure that is entirely enclosed, and if the zoning and planning director finds a proposed manufacturing and production use will have a substantially negative impact on a surrounding area or adjoining property, the use shall comply with the special exception procedures of this ordinance. And there are no changes to those conditions as exist. Again, we're defining the pharmaceutical, fertilizer, and pesticide wholesaler as an establishment primarily engaged in selling and or distributing of pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, and or pesticides, or pharmaceutical, fertilizer, or pesticide supplies to retailers, users, firms, or other wholesalers, as well as activities involving the movement and storage of products and equipment. This use often includes display areas, and sales to the public are limited. Products may be picked up on site or delivered to the customer. Section 6419, affordable workforce dwelling units, and Chapter 12, definitions. Density bonuses for the development of affordable and workforce dwellings in the urban suburban area. We are looking to clarify that the minimum lot size applies to single-family detached development and allow reductions in the minimum lot size through the variance process. We also want to state that there is no minimum lot size for alternative housing types, and clarify that the UR waterfront development standards and building height requirements apply to development in the community commercial and industrial zoning districts. And we're also looking to allow the zoning and planning director to reduce right-of-way easement and land use buffers for affordable and workforce dwellings as applicable. We are also requesting to change the definition of workforce dwelling units to encompass housing affordable to families earning up to 150% of the area median family income, only for properties within the urban suburban area. Section 6454, kennels, allow variance requests from the minimum 100-foot buffer requirement in compliance with Article 310, zoning variances. Section 659, accessory dwelling units, and Chapter 12, definitions. We want to clarify that accessory dwelling units within the residential and residential office zoning districts in the urban suburban area shall comply with the setback requirements of Section 658B3. Specify that the definition of accessory dwelling unit that Both the ADU and the principal dwelling unit are serviced by one electrical meter. Specifying the definition of duplex, that each unit is serviced by separate electrical meters. Section 6517D, temporary portable storage units. We are looking to increase the amount of time a temporary portable storage unit can be on a property from 60 days to 6 months. Section 6518, permanent storage units. We're looking to clarify that permanent storage units may be established as accessory uses in the industrial zoning district, also allowed as accessory uses in the RR, AGR, AG8, AG10, AG15, RM, CC, and RI zoning districts. Section 648 and 663, roadside stands and Chapter 12 definitions. Combine all requirements for roadside stands and sweetgrass basket stands into one section. Add a 5-foot right-of-way setback for roadside stand parking. Clarify that farmers markets may have one or more vendors and reduce the maximum amount of gross receipts that may be derived from the sale of home processed foods, handicrafts, and other commercially packaged items from 50% to 25% to distinguish farmers markets from retail sales uses. Add that food trucks are not included in the definition of farmers market and they require special events permits. Section 761, form-based zoning district, delete the definition of duplex, triplex, quadplex, as these terms are already defined in Chapter 12. Section 873, access, allow the zoning and planning director and public works director the ability to require that rights-of-way within the urban-suburban area be paved in compliance with ZLDR Appendix A, road and drainage construction standards. Article 9.2, tree protection and preservation, requesting to allow flexibility for clearing of properties in the industrial zoning district below the minimum diameter at breast height, number of trees required in the ZLDR with mitigation and or variances. Properties within the industrial district may elect to mitigate the removal of protected trees through payment in the mitigation fund, with the exception that all grand trees and any required buffer tree measuring 8 inches or greater must be preserved. On industrial properties that elect to mitigate the removal of protected trees and where planting of canopy trees is required in buffers and other landscaping and screening, canopy trees must be a minimum of 4 caliper inches. Article 9.3, off-street parking and loading. Off-street parking schedule and vehicle stacking requirements. We're looking to correct section references, make language consistent throughout the table, and include stacking as a part of the parking calculation requirement for vehicle repair or service uses. For travelways that are not access easements or rights-of-way, we're asking to allow parking to cross property lines where there are shared access and or parking agreements as applicable and as approved by the zoning and planning director, and clarify that any and all ADA parking options as dictated by federal guidelines are allowed. Article 9.3, off-street parking and loading, continued. We also would like to include requirements for dimensions and planting of medians. We're requesting a minimum of 5 feet in, medium of 5 feet in width and 15 feet in length, and we're not specifically prohibited by the agency responsible for the maintenance of the intersecting right-of-way. A planted median is required. And allow an additional curb cuts of up to 60 feet in width and without medians for safety service uses. Article 9.4, landscaping, screening, and buffers. We're looking to clarify that stormwater swales can occupy up to 25% of the depth of buffers, the same way stormwater ponds are allowed in buffers. Exempt townhome, duplex, triplex, and fourplex development from the requirement to provide buffers along newly created internal access easements and or rights-of-way. Correct inconsistencies between the land use buffer table and the buffer depth and landscaping standards table. When buffer types were added, the table was not updated accordingly. And clarify that no single plant species can represent more than 40% of the total landscape plantings per plant type, except for projects whose landscape requirements for canopy trees are less than 10 trees. Article 9.5, architectural and landscape design standards, requires structures with walls of more than 1,500 square feet to incorporate fascias, canopies, etc., to break up the wall surface on street-facing elevations. Right now, we're encouraging this, but it's not codified. Allow safety service uses and properties in the industrial zoning district to vary from the requirement for buildings to be oriented so that loading areas do not face residential districts or uses or rights-of-way. Clarify that vehicle stacking associated with drive-throughs shall be located to the side or rear of buildings. Allow any required vehicle stacking in the front of buildings to be screened via an architectural wall constructed along the back edge of the right-of-way buffer that spans either the frontage of the property or the building frontage plus 50 feet on either side, whichever is less. Article 9.6, traffic impact studies. Clarify that traffic impact studies are required for existing and or new non-residential development that includes more than 10,000 square feet of heated, cooled space. And this is clarifying the square footage calculation of the current language, which states more than 10,000 square feet of existing and or new non-residential development. And to Chapter 12 definitions, we want to clarify that single-family attached dwelling units and duplexes are not included in the multifamily dwelling unit definition. Clarify that single-family attached dwelling units may or may not be located on separate lots. Clarify that access to fourplexes shall be from a single entrance from the street leading to a shared corridor from which the individual units are accessed. Clarify that triplexes are not multifamily dwellings. We received 2 letters in support of the amendments to Section 463B, the AG 15 Agricultural Preservation District, and we have received 3 letters in opposition to the amendments to Section 61419, Affordable and Workforce Dwelling Units, and Chapter 12 definitions. This request was noticed as required.
We appreciate the staff's comprehensive report. Are there any questions from the staff or the staff from the commission members? Anybody?
I do have one quick question.
Okay.
And I don't know if the Johns Island Task Force is going to come up and make the comment, but I did see in a letter of theirs regarding the change to 6.4.19 with the change from 125 or 120 to 150% AMI, and you do make the distinction of urban, suburban. I just want to clarify that is what's within the UGB.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Please don't. Anybody else? Okay. I have a question about back at 4.2.4. When it says that the OCRM buffer has been disturbed or destroyed, and then you just have to replace it with native plants that are saltwater tolerant. So how would the buffer be destroyed? Is it like a disturbance from the construction or?
Yeah, it can be disturbance from construction. I guess it could be that somebody went in there without a permit, cut things down, things of that nature.
So if there's like a violation, then all they have to do is replant stuff?
I think typically as it stands, if there is a violation, they can retroactively get a permit, but this would require them to replant everything.
Okay. Doesn't seem like very much for somebody who destroys the OCRM buffer.
Well, let me clarify. In our ordinance, we specify number of trees, shrubs for all of our other buffers, but we do not specify in OCRM critical line buffers because it's intended that it remain natural.
Right.
And when we do have cases of violations of that, it seems like it becomes a little bit of an exercise in debating with the violator as to what gets planted back. And we just want to clarify what does get planted back.
So the sort of the equivalent of the foliage that was there before gets planted back. Okay. All right. And the other question I had is the 6.1. where where the director can administratively send stuff? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Adam.
Just on that last point, does the county maintain a list of native plants that are acceptable for planting? And is that stated somewhere clearly so that it can be
We have a
referenced?
native list that's not part of our ordinance, and when we look at doing critical line buffers, we have the ability to go to DHEC, OCRM, they have a list, and we'll work with that list as well.
Anybody else?
Just one question.
Suzanne?
Okay, under section 6.5.9, ADU, under definitions, you specify that a duplex, that each unit is serviced by separate electrical meters. And I just wanted to know that in some of the older communities, you have two families living together, and they both have their own sections of the houses. And sometimes they want to separate it. So does that mean they have to change their zoning in order to separate their meters?
Well, if you have a house that has an accessory dwelling unit attached to it.
No, it's not an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, go ahead.
But a duplex, it's considered a duplex, is
Okay.
what I understand. But if they wanted to separate the two, one meter, so that each unit will have its own meter, does that require a zoning change? Or?
No, it would not.
Yeah, that is that's why this is written here. There's we have an issue with how we apply a duplex. We've always interpreted it from the beginning, since I've been here, is a duplex is when there are 2 meters.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's only 1 meter, we consider that all one house that happens to have an attached ADU, like an attached garage apartment. So when we're just trying to clarify in this proposal that when you have 2 meters, it's a duplex.
Okay. And it doesn't require a zoning change?
No.
Okay.
No.
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, I have one about the 6.1-1, where it says that if the zoning and planning director finds the proposed manufacturing production use will have a substantially negative impact on the surrounding area adjoining property, the use shall comply with the special exception procedures of this ordinance. Does that mean it goes to the BZA, or does the director decide whether it meets the...
It's the negative impact threshold. So if we have a proposal, depending on the site specifics, if it's a 10-acre fertilizer plant right adjacent to a residence, right, exactly, then it may be determined that could pose a negative impact on the surrounding area, and that would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
For a special
It just says, okay. I just wanted to clarify that that's what that meant, that it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Anybody else have any other questions about any other sections? Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of these amendments? Anybody? And again, we're limiting people to 2 minutes speaking.
I'm Louise Maybury, 2029 Burger Hill Road. I'm here to support the AG 15. I just recently had 150 acres of family land surveyed for internal family purposes, and found that 150 acres, which I thought, would come out at 10 lots, came out at 25 because of that AG 15 carve out that you have right now for the 1,000 feet. If you stack the way it is now, you can stack up behind the creek. You can do 3 acres in any sort of configuration and get behind them. And I've got show and tell right here, but I don't want to put it into the public purvey. I don't want to give it to you right now. But it is a critical unintended consequence of what can happen out on Wadmalaw Island with that 1,000 acre situation in the 1,000 foot setback in the 3 acre lots in the 15 acre carve out. And so I cannot tell you how important it is to change that and get it squared away so that only one lot next to the creek can be 3 acres and not, as in my situation, 11 extra lots and inland land because of a little thing that went up that the OCRM considers saltwater. Thank you.
So is that a good thing?
Yes.
Good afternoon, I'm Melinda Kelly at 2124 Allendale Plantation Road on Wadmalaw. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Wadmalaw Land Planning Committee. We are supporting the change for 4.6, as Ms. Maybank just spoke about. And I think it's always been a rule that it's just a parcel and that anything beyond the 1,000 feet has to meet the 15 acre rule. But this clarification is really good. So we appreciate it. There is going to be a small tweak that we would ask you to approve that the Coastal Conservation League will speak to behind us, who I think is next. But in general, we are in full agreement of this clarification. We don't think it's a change, but a clarification, as I believe was spelled out earlier. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Betsy LaForce with the Coastal Conservation League, 131 Spring Street. To echo and elaborate on the comments of Ms. Kelly and Ms. Maybank, we would also like to support the proposed amendment to Article number 2, Section Article 4.6.3b, Ag 15, Agricultural Preservation District. The current Ag 15 zoning on Wadmalaw limits residential density to 1 unit per 15 acres. However, the current text allows for properties within 1,000 feet of the marsh to be subdivided with a density of 1 house per 3 acres. This is what led to the Anchorage Plantation subdivision, building 2 rows of homes totaling 76 units on 3 acre parcels within 1,000 feet of Bohicket Creek. To avoid similar scenarios in the future, it's important that this clarification be made. We would like to respectfully recommend one small language adjustment to make the intent even clearer. Page 238 in your packet shows the proposed text amendment for section 4.6.3, density, intensity, and dimensional standards in red. Our suggestion would be to change the proposed text in red that reads, any lot created within the 1,000 feet must also contain or abut an OCRM critical line, and replace it with the following language that's a little more specific to read, only if the parcel abuts the OCRM critical line and the lot is within 1,000 feet of where the parcel abuts the OCRM critical line. Our intention with the suggested word change is to help avoid debate and confusion down the road. For instance, with the current wording, a possible interpretation could be that a lot could be created within 1,000 feet of the critical line that's 15 acres or more. The wording could also be interpreted as meaning any lot to which is created must abut the critical line. Additionally, lastly, we suggest there be clarification about how much of the parcel must abut the critical line. What if only 20 linear feet abuts the line? Is that parcel still eligible for this density bonus? Perhaps minimum lot widths to ensure flag lots or piano key lots, like Ms. Maybank alluded to, aren't drawn to create another density loophole. The proposed clarification with a slight verbiage tweak will help close a loophole that's been allowing for denser residential development near the marshfront and Ag 15, a practice that is in contrast with the values of the Wadmalaw Island community. Thank you.
Does the staff want to address those proposed tweaks at some point?
That was the first we'd heard of any suggestion of the change of that language. There were a couple things. Anchorage Plantation was not developed under these ordinance guidelines.
Recomp plan.
Yeah, that was a planned development, and that was previous to our current comprehensive plan and ordinance. The other is that, I mean, I have to see the language in it. The 20-foot strip adjacent to the water would not be allowed because we have waterfront development standards for all of our zoning districts. And it references the R3 standards with a minimum lot size of 3 acres. So that would not be possible to happen. So that would be unnecessary wording, I think. Again, that was the first time we'd heard of it, but there was some, it seemed like there was a concern that a lot could be more than 3 acres, 15 acres on the water, which I'm trying to understand why that would be an issue for folks on Wadmalaw to have a larger lot than what the minimum would be. But I have not seen the language. So if someone would be wants to send it to us for us to review, we'd be glad to look at it.
Okay, but that hasn't been submitted at time, Joe. Is that what we're doing today?
No, I mean, so it's up to the planning commission how, I mean, we would like for this to go forward as soon as possible because we want to make sure that we get this clarification on the books sooner than later. But we'll be glad to look at whatever suggested changes there are.
Mr. Zolgar?
Hi, John Zolliger with the task force again. Just like to thank staff for modifying the definition of the workforce dwelling units to exclude areas outside the urban growth boundary. We think that's certainly the right way to go because outside the urban growth boundary, there's no public transportation. There's no easy access to grocery stores. There's no easy access to after school care for children. So we believe that's exactly the right thing to do, and thank you very much.
Does anybody want to speak against? All right. Do we have a motion and a second from the commission?
I'd like to, would that motion be pending Mr. Evans getting the information to review the information that was read up here of the young lady? That we move forward with what's been given as input. I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm processing. I'm trying to figure out how to move this forward as best we can, and then for us to relay to council during the process of what some of the suggestions were. And if my staff has any suggestions on that, let me know.
So this is going to take a 30-day public hearing anyway, so it's likely we wouldn't be able to take it until November. So we could bring the language back to the October Planning Commission for this particular one, just for a check while we're advertising the public hearing.
Can we carve out that section?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Bring it back to you. Mm-hmm.
So then So then can we approve everything else and take that part out until you get an opportunity? That's what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, you can approve it as it is with a recommendation that we work with the Coastal Conservation League and bring that back to you. That way we could go ahead and advertise the public hearing and like I said, it'd probably be a November date just to give us time.
Okay. And what would the motion be?
To recommend approval and direct staff to work with the Coastal Conservation League on that one section. It was 4.24.4 and bring that back to you at the October meeting.
I'd make that motion.
And from the commission. All right. If there's no further discussion, we will ask for the vote.
Who seconded that motion?
Did we have a second? We didn't hear a second.
I'll second.
Yeah, there was a second.
Okay. Commissioner Chavis?
Aye.
Commissioner Logan Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Marlena Davis?
Aye.
Chair Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Kent?
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell?
Aye.
Vice Chair Pilatos?
Aye.
Commissioner Morris?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
County Council will hear this request at an upcoming public hearing. The public will be notified when the hearing is scheduled. All right. The next item on the agenda is the director's remarks.
So starting at the next meeting, we'll be giving the Planning Commission updates on the comprehensive plan update process, which we hope to be done by next year at this time and bring something forward to the Planning Commission. But of course, staff is doing a lot of work right now, kind of behind the scenes, and we'll be going out into the community later on in the year and early next year as well to get input on that required 10-year update. Other than that, we're continuing to work on with the Mount Pleasant staff, with the updating our Mount Pleasant overlay zoning district, and incorporating a lot of the settlement communities in that overlay zoning district, other than just historic districts, which we're excited about, and the town staff is excited about as well. This will be good because then the settlement communities in Mount Pleasant will be recognized both by the town and the county in corresponding overlay zoning districts. The permitting numbers have not changed significantly, even though we're in this uncertain economic time. So we'll see how that goes and let Planning Commission know what happens with that. That's about it.
Okay. All right. As a reminder, the Conceptual Plan Development Workshop will begin immediately following the conclusion of today's Planning Commission meeting. If there is no further business, the meeting of the Charleston County Planning Commission stands adjourned, and the commission will hold its next regularly scheduled meeting on Monday, October 10th at 2 p.m. here in council chambers. All right, so who's going to do the workshop? Okay.
Well, Emily will start.
Okay. You want to start with the workshop, Emily? Working you today.
Yes, is the applicant here? The applicant will be presenting a workshop for the Highway 174 plan development.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Guger. I'm with Coastal Development Partners. We're a preferred developer for Dollar General in the lower half of the state. We've been looking at the Edisto area for a good while. We feel that there is a substantial need for additional convenient grocery, in particular, fresh produce in particular, and other fresh items, not down by the beach, but more inland on Edisto Island in that vicinity. We've looked at many parcels in this area. I'm born and raised in Charleston County and understand the critical need to not disturb oak trees and stay out of wetlands and all of those things. And we also wanted to respect the comprehensive plan of Charleston County. When you get down to that, there's very few parcels anywhere in this market that are directed by Charleston County for commercial development that aren't already in use. Do I have somebody operating slides? Or?
If you could present from this side.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I didn't know I got to be in charge. Do I just hit the click? Oh, no. Is it arrows? Maybe it's arrows. Yep, okay, it's arrows. So we found this parcel that is located about 8 miles from Edisto Beach. It is located next to a existing convenience store. And let's see what we've got next. Currently, the zoning next door is commercial. The the main parcel that's behind the triangular shaped parcel is the main parcel that we're using. And it is part of the Charleston comprehensive plan to have future commercial use. This is our proposed site plan, and I'll pause here for a little bit. The public notice that went out said that 2 parcels were affected, and that is true, but it's a large parcel that's the second parcel that is affected, and we are not affecting that entire parcel, or actually barely any of it. We're using approximately a half an acre of it to safely put in a driveway for this commercial use. And because of this being a planned development, our use for the front parcel is only general retail. It would not have any other use available to it unless we came back before the commission. With feedback from the community as well as the current property owner, we will be revising the plan to say that the back parcel that would remain vacant at this time, that for it to be developed at all, we would require to come back before you. We're going to withdraw the use of dog kennel. We feel like it would be best that they bring that back when they have, for example, a site plan that would show setbacks and things like that. And that was just very conceptual at this time. So any use on that 3 acres on the back would come back before Planning Commission. The retail site is about 2.2 acres. We have gotten some feedback from the community. We've had 4 community meetings so far with different groups in the area. That shows, again, the aerial. You can see we're complying with setbacks and things. We're nestling as close as possible to the convenience store to keep commercial uses next to each other and not disturb any more of the agricultural use than needed. This is our conceptual landscaping plan. Of course, it would have extensive landscaping as well as building upgrades. One, to comply with Charleston County, but also to be good neighbors with Edisto. We understand Edisto and certainly do not want to put up a standard metal building on the only corridor back and forth from Edisto. This is what's in the packet right now, and it made the deadline with the input from the community. We actually have a version 2 of this, and that's why I was carrying around boards. I'll show you that in a minute, but I think it's getting even better. This is you'll notice the signage on the front of the building. This is a Dollar General Market store, or a DG Market is the brand that they use. It's a 12,400, almost a 12,500 square foot store, and it puts a lot more emphasis on grocery than their standard prototypes. And so fresh produce, meats, dairy, all of those areas are expanded in this concept, and partly that is because of the need that we see this area 8 miles inland, that the immediate community there desperately needs more access to grocery. Those are all the slides that I have. Let's see, where did I? This was the board that's in your packet, and we were told by the community that it should look more coastal, and so we're looking at something more like this.
We'd like to see it.
Do you mind if I turn and show it?
Please do.
This was the original, and this is the new and improved. The only other thing that we've really gotten feedback on from the community and would like to, as we go through the approval process, we'll address is that we're going to be very careful of the plantings that we use in the front because they're concerned about visibility of that road, especially like people coming out of the convenience store. And certainly we don't want our landscaping blocking not only our driveway's visibility, but other activity that's going on in that area of the road. So we'll be looking at that landscaping also, either to make it that it's above eyesight or low, not a lot of bushy that would be blocking views. So I'm open to any questions.
Any questions from the members of the commission?
So I would assume that there would probably end up being some pedestrian, well, whether you put a pedestrian connection between this and the next door gas station, there would probably be people walking back and forth. Is that any consideration, or do you not feel that way? I don't know.
Something that we can definitely look at. There is a ditch between the two right now that we would either have to quote bridge or look at that. But certainly, I mean,
Right,
actually that had not been brought up, so that's a great idea.
And that's just an assumption that
Right.
people would, not
Sure.
necessarily saying that you should or need to. I haven't been to the site, so.
Right.
Anybody else on the commission? I want to, thank you. I want to remind everybody that this is just a workshop. Nothing's going to be decided today. So, and that being said, would anybody like to speak in favor of the project? Okay, would you come up and give us your name and address? And we're restricting everybody to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I am here on behalf of my father, Mark Steedley, who owns the property. I am Deanna Steedley is my name. I just want to read what he wrote for you all. I am Mark Steedley. I reside at 2306 Highway 174, and I am the owner of which, for the property being rezoning, is requested. Like many of the island residents, I am deeply rooted in this community. My family has been on Edisto since the 1930s. As a matter of fact, my grandfather, Harry McTeer, owned the first general store on Edisto. Much like other residents, I have an attachment to Edisto, not only to its beautiful environment, but also the people and to the quality of life we all enjoy. For many years, I heard residents voicing their frustrations for the inability to purchase the most common of necessities nearby. Unless you travel to Edisto Beach, 8 miles, Ravenel, or Hollywood, there is no convenience on Edisto, aside the Enmark station. Traveling to the beach is a real burden, particularly in the summer months where the tourists flock to the beach. More recently, the rising cost of fuel has created a greater burden, and the frustrations continue to mount. These are real issues which affect the ability to live a comfortable life for many of us. Edisto Beach, as it's referred to, is Colleton County, and it caters mostly tourism. Edisto Island is in Charleston County. As we all know, the residents who live here would much rather patronize businesses in their county, but in order to do so, they must travel to Hollywood or Ravenel. These are reasons I wanted to sell my property to Dollar General. It is my belief the simple convenience will improve the living for most of us who reside here, as well as provide jobs. I also believe it would not adversely affect traffic flow any more than the beachgoers. Thank you for your time.
Tell us your name and your address.
Anitra Harper, 1760 Sugar Pond Road, Edisto Island, South Carolina.
I'm standing today not just for the average person who lives on Edisto, but for the elderly and the ones who don't live in million-dollar homes. Everyone on Edisto does not have a car. Most of us work on that beach and we can't even afford to stay there. It is pivotal that we have an option. I'm not saying that Dollar General is the ideal store and is perfect in every way, but what it does give is that person that's standing on the side of the road to catch a ride to the beach, a closer option. And that's all that we're asking is for an option. You got plenty of emails from a lot of organizations on Edisto. None of these organizations open up their election process to the average person on Edisto. They are appointed and then have elections with about 10% of the population. I just learned who represents me from the Edisto Island Association Thursday. That's not right. They don't speak for the average person on Edisto. We would like some convenience. We would like not to have growth that we end up looking like Mount Pleasant or Folly Beach, but a store in the center of an island that can give us options should not be something that is unheard of, and you should be condemned for speaking out for the average person. I was told that my family has land and that land is a resource. It's only a resource if I'm trying to sell it. And when I die, my children don't want to come to Edisto because there's nothing there. So the beach, that's 99% white, the island will be the same way if we stockholders who've been here for 6 and 7 generations can't improve our living situation so that our children will not sell our property. And that's what we are facing. My kids have already told me, I don't want it, Mama. I'm not going to come back to Edisto. So what does that leave? That leaves property in my family for over 100 years that will be sold because I can't even give them a store to buy fruit and vegetables from. Thank you.
My name is Centria Harper. I live at 1764 Sugar Pond Road on Edisto. I stand before you almost as a drum major, just to sound the alarm that we have a great disparity on the island. We have the haves and we have the have-nots. The have-nots would like to have something. We should not have to, when we have a storm or, for example, my grandchild was here from out of town. I couldn't get diapers on the beach. Couldn't get gripe water, couldn't get infant Tylenol. Had to go to Charleston and Ravenel for that. We shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to be inconvenienced in our own neighborhood. The same conveniences that I'm sure all of you have, where you can get up and say, I'm going to drive for 5 minutes and go to the store and pick up a pack of toilet paper. We should have that. There's times when we go to the beach to pick something up, there's nothing there. I have a 9th grader. She'll have an assignment due. I'm home. I have to go back across the bridge to get a poster board. That's ridiculous. I pay taxes. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I should have access to the basic necessities without it being an inconvenience on my life. That's it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. Our mother has been ill for the last 2 years. She's no longer able to drive. She depends on us. My brother is here also. I no longer live on Edisto but reside in Charleston. So can you imagine the burden this placed on me? I do all of my mother's shopping. Most of it is done in Charleston for fear of getting all the way on Edisto and there's nothing on the shelf that I need. For example, my mother has medication that she has to take with milk. There's been several occasions when I've gone to the Food Lion on the beach 3 or 4 times and there's no milk at all. None. And I'm told, keep coming back, and there's no milk. This is ridiculous. We shouldn't have to live like this. We should have options. There should be another store, a facility for us to get the things that we need. We shouldn't have to spend multiple times a day going to a store, finding out when the truck is coming so that we can get what we need. I just feel that At this time, we need another option. The Dollar General appears to be a good option. I'm here to support it. My brother, my sister-in-law, and some others, we're here to support it. And all I'm asking is that you give us this opportunity. If there's a storm, we have to travel in the storm to go and get what we need. That's dangerous. We're traveling on the roads. There's trees falling down. It takes us almost 30 to 45 minutes just to get the basic necessities, and we're doing this in extreme danger. I believe that this danger could be avoided. We need a Dollar General that would give Edisto Island residents access to what every other community has. James Island, Johns Island, Walmala, these are Charleston, downtown Charleston. Everyone has a Dollar General, another option. All we want is the same. We're just asking for a seat at the table, a table that should be for everyone, not just some people. Thank you.
Who are you and what's your address?
My name is Carla Geddes, and I'm at 2472 Flamingo Drive in Charleston. And on every Friday at 3:30, I leave my job and I go and I stay with my mother on Edisto Island. So I'm there every weekend. And
came with you, you said?
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I said I'm sorry.
About what?
Not acknowledging back to you.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak against?
Hi, my name is Cindy Napier Mills. I live at 2212 Cookieland Lane on Edisto. I emailed the letter that y'all requested, but I didn't do it till Sunday, so I just thought I would read it in case you didn't get it. Please save Edisto. Some people say progress and change are always a good thing and that they're inevitable, but I ask you to take a minute and think about the progress and conveniences that have come into the world in the last 100 years. Here are two. Can you honestly say that the world is better off than it was before the internet and social media became so consuming in our society? Children are now a target more than ever for bullying, pedophilia, developing mental and eating disorders, not to mention how suicide rates have skyrocketed from 5.8 in 1950 from ages 15 to 24 to now 14.24 in 2020 for the same age group. Take it back a few more decades to when fast food came onto the scene. Prior to this convenience, obesity was almost non-existent in our country. 37.9% of men and 41.2% of women are currently considered obese in our country. In the 1950s, it was a total of 10%, 60s, 13, 70s, 15. Prior to 1940, obesity didn't exist. These are just two major examples of things that sounded great in the beginning, but have turned out to be very detrimental to our society, despite being progressive and convenient. I say all this to ask you to please say no to approving and to rezoning anything in the name of progress without considering how it will detrimentally affect our sweet, tranquil island and community. Please save us from commercializing and becoming overcrowded. As we all know, if one example gets approved for change, it will be the gateway to many, many more, which in turn destroys our peaceful island. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Baylor Mason. I live at 8106 Latchicott Street, and I'm 11 years old. I've lived on Edisto Island my entire life. Edisto is a beautiful place to live that is incredibly special and unique because of the way the island has preserved its character and slow way of life. I feel blessed to have grown up on an island that allows for my curiosity about the world to be fed while surrounded by the beauty and wonder of a place rich in history and nature. Edisto is the last remaining barrier island in South Carolina that has preserved so much for children like me to explore and for future generations to enjoy. In school, adults teach us the importance of protecting our planet. Here in Edisto, we live out the ideas through recycling, participating in beach sweeps, and doing our part to protect the sea turtles that nest in our beaches. Why are you teaching us about these things when you're intentionally seeking ways to stop all our efforts? By rezoning the land, you are purposely opening up the island for deforestation and commercialization. You will create less space for our local animals and teach the future generation that money is more important than preserving our planet. Edisto is not only unique because of the natural beauty, but also because of its people. I believe that members of our community have needs that are not being met. We should not ignore those needs, but we need to find a way to solve the problem that is best for everyone. In my house, I'm not allowed to complain about something without trying to find a solution. I believe that we have options to solve the problem of having another store on the island. One of the 3 markets we already have on Edisto, not on the beach, could expand their selection, or empty buildings could be utilized for a market. For as long as I can remember, the Edisto Island Community Center has been empty. A local family could use that space to create a store that provides further options for community members. I would be willing to run that store if my mom would let me quit school. It would be better for our community to support local businesses and families than to bring in a store like Dollar General.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, you have to follow that.
It is hard to follow that. My name is Janie McNeely. My husband and I live at 8475 Middleton Point Lane in Middleton Subdivision on Edisto Island. We've been there since 1993, Charleston County taxpayers and Charleston County voters. I'm here standing in opposition, absolutely, to agricultural rezoning to PD land, not because I'm opposed to Dollar General. I really don't care. I am not a fan of Dollar General whatsoever. I find their business model predatory, their employment practices reprehensible, and their product selection below standard. What I will say is if this island, who has clearly said that there is an unmet need, wants a Dollar General, there are plenty of places on the island that are currently zoned commercial where they can put their store. That doesn't require rezoning agricultural land to planned development. This is not about the Dollar General. This is about rezoning agricultural land to planned development, and establishing a precedent that will irrevocably change the character and the culture of our preserved Edisto Island. It's one of the last remaining barrier islands that remains undeveloped, and it's up to each one of you to preserve the character of Edisto and to prevent this from happening. It is going to be a floodgate of development if you allow this one rezoning to go through. I respectfully ask you to say no to rezoning and yes to Edisto's future.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the service. I want to thank one of the proponents for mentioning that we on Edisto don't want what happened to Mount Pleasant to happen to us. I agree. I lived in Mount Pleasant for 35 years. I actually served on council of Mount Pleasant for 4 years in 88 to 92. And I watched it and saw the change that every in density request, zoning changes up and down Coleman Boulevard had the impact on the livability of my neighborhood and the rest of that community. When I retired and I moved to Edisto 4 years ago, I live in Middleton. By the way, I forgot to say my name, Tom Utze, 8559 Middleton Point Lane. I've lived there for 4 years. This request is very near the entrance to my neighborhood. I am in favor of shopping options for all of Edisto Island and the beach, but I'm opposed to zoning changes from agricultural land such as this. This property is beautiful, and although it's next to the end market, it would be a shame to see this zoning change be the beginning of a number of other zoning changes up and down the Scenic Highway. Highway 174 is a scenic highway. Edisto Island has protection under the Edisto Island Land Trust, the Low Country Land Trust, and it's in the Ace Basin. There are signs on Highway 17 that say Ace Basin, the last great place. Edisto is part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Marshburn. I'm from 1710 Lybrand Street in Edisto Beach, but I'm not representing Edisto Beach today. I'm representing the Edisto Island Preservation Alliance. I happen to be a chairman of the board, and so I'm speaking for the board and this Preservation Alliance today. We wouldn't be here today if this weren't rezoning. I wish all our average Edistonians, as they call themselves, would know that we're for you. But they had to rezone. You know, there are commercial lots that they could have gone to. We pass them every day when we go by Builder Supply. They chose not to use these commercial lots. You could have had your Dollar General. But now we're here fighting rezoning, because that's our job. Rezoning affects the future of Edisto. As far as future, we use a future land use in our comprehensive plan. The future land use, you heard today, has two segments, two sectors. One is agricultural now, but it will be future rural commercial. That's where the store will be built. The other, next to it, is a future land use agriculture, AGR. They're putting a big driveway on it, 3 lanes. Is that okay with AGR? Even in the future? We don't think so. But as other speakers have said, the future is a domino effect for what happens today.
My name is Vera Fogel. I live at 8463 Middleton Point Lane on Edisto Island. To continue on with what this gentleman is saying, we need to stop the rezoning now. If you don't draw the line in the sand today, when will it be drawn? I lived through Atlanta's boom. We're living through the boom all over Charleston and Somerville and everywhere else. This is supposed to be our scenic highway coming into Edisto, charming and delightful 2-lane road. And now we're going to have commercial development all along it. So we have one store here, then we'll have one store there. Next thing you know, we've got a strip mall. We don't have the facilities for that. We don't have the infrastructure for that. This is all well water and septic tanks. We can't have that. We just can't have that. And it's not Dollar General. As the other gentleman said, there's plenty of land. I came in today off of Highway 174 and 164. There's a corner there with 3 pieces of property ready to be, that are already rezoned. Why can't the Dollar General go there? They ignored that. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you will certainly consider what I've said.
Good afternoon. My name is Virginia Graydon. I am an average person. I live at 7450 Jenkins Hill Road. Edisto Island is one of the last barrier islands that's not been overdeveloped. We must protect our beautiful island from rezoning, which will permanently change the historic character and natural environment of the National Scenic Byway and Edisto Island. I am a 3rd-generation Edistonian and Charleston County resident who is fiercely proud of the character, beauty, and historical significance of our wonderful island. Please do not vote yes on zoning changes, which would do irreparable harm to our beautiful island. My grandmother, Nell Graydon, came to Edisto in 1930s and built a home on the beach when there was very little there. In 1955, she wrote the book Tales of Edisto, one of the very first books about our wonderful island. My parents lived back on the island. They died, and they're buried on Edisto. My husband and I are full-time residents, and my hope is that my children and grandchildren will someday live there. I'm fighting to ensure that their Edisto will be the Edisto that we now know and love. Living on Edisto is not without inconvenience. When you live here, you know that some things may be a little harder to come by. It's something you accept when you choose to stay or move to the island. But we do have easy access to fresh fruits and vegetables through King's Market and George and Pink's Farm Stand, both located mid-island. There is a grocery store on the beach for people. Most of them, it's a 6 or 7 mile drive. We also have 2 N-Marts and the Edisto General Store. There are 2 hardware stores and multiple other specialty shops. Edisto is a caring community. We have a food pantry, a very active blessing box, and the Presbyterian Church gives out free produce every month. We have no need for further development, but should someone wish, there are empty stores available and a significant piece of property already zoned commercial mid-island that is currently on the market. We do not need further commercial development. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Williams. I live at 890 Hammocks Way on Edisto Island. My husband and I are full-time residents of Edisto Island, and we hope the committee will take to heart the concerns from all Edistonians about preserving our culture and heritage. As one of only 4 scenic byways in South Carolina, I can tell you my family has been traveling this road to Edisto since 1941, the year my grandparents were engaged there. As a local realtor, I speak to people daily who want to come to Edisto because they want to escape the crazy rat race going on in every other community, just like what we've been listening to today affecting other islands. Especially since COVID, more and more people are longing to get back to a slower way of life, focus on things that really matter and last. They want to return to the family-oriented lifestyle we enjoy, as opposed to the race for shopping centers, chain stores, hotels, etc., that the almighty dollar of developers bring, corrupting the land and altering our community. Many people reaching out to me remember Edisto from their childhoods and are thankful for the Edisto residents who have worked together to preserve Edisto so their children and grandchildren can also enjoy the peace and serenity that only Edisto offers. There are few islands like Edisto, those without the ugly foothold of commercialization, traffic lights, and displacement of property owners as well as wildlife caused by rezoning. We all know once they get their foot in the door, they will continue to come back for more. It will never be enough, ever. If this rezoning is approved, it will forever change our island. It will be exactly like every other low-country island that's infiltrated by greedy developers. If approved, you will literally be robbing future generations of knowing what it's like to live on a vacation, live and in vacation in a beautiful place untouched by development. Edisto will never be the same. It will be like every other island in Charleston County. It is clear today, after hearing those for the Dollar General, that we have a community of members in need, and I hope we can come together as a community to meet those needs. With that said, I hope you and pray you will vote no and save our island. Thank you.
Anybody else has a no?
Hi, I'm Michelle Alston. My husband and I live directly across from that field. We're at 2369 Highway 174. I did not notice until today, because it's been focused on being Dollar General, what they are proposing to change the zoning on is basically that entire field. All that's left is enough of a buffer between that property and the neighbor to access the back of the field. We have finally paid for our house. We have both were raised here. My family's been here for over 300 years. I spent most of my childhood on the other side of the bridge by Little Britain. When I was a kid, it was all farm. I think only King's is still farming. The other main concern, and this has had me very upset, the other main concern is that when we're dealing with a historic scenic highway, that says you cannot widen it. What are we going to do with 50 places of parking coming out onto that already busy road? I wanted to get a traffic count, but I wasn't able to get in touch with anybody to do that. There's a camera and probably a counter at the entrance to the beach. I did not know who to contact to get the information. Right now in the summertime, when I pull out of my driveway, some mornings it takes me counting 40-plus cars to turn out. The N-Mart sells gas, diapers, etc. King's Market has grass-fed beef, a commercial kitchen, groceries. George and Pink's has been there forever. You know, there is access. There used to be a community van or two that would run to people to town. But I request that you please give this further thought before you agree.
Hi, I'm Penny again. I am a resident in the upstate in Clinton, South Carolina. I own property on Edisto Island and plan to be a resident there, hopefully within the next year or two. I'm a newcomer to Edisto. I learned about it about 20 years ago, came to go camping, and people said, "What's at Edisto?" Nothing. And they're like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, really, nothing." That's why I like going to Edisto, because there is not much there. Highway 174 is a 14-mile stretch of road designated as a National Scenic Byway. National. South Carolina has 4 National Scenic Byways, and Edisto Island is one of those. As a National Scenic Byway, it exhibits one or more of 6 core intrinsic qualities: scenic, natural, historic, recreational, archaeological, or cultural. According to the South Carolina DOT, we've got 4: historical, recreational, agricultural, and scenic. And I would argue that we also include natural and cultural sites. So we hit all 6 of the criteria on our scenic byway. $1 general is not really going to have a big impact on this scenic byway. But as I've seen here today, one thing's approved and they come back and add another, and it just keeps growing. And if this is rezoned, I'm afraid it's going to be more rezoning. The other large acreage, 100 acres behind this lot. And once, you hear the word slippery slope, and that's what comes to mind. My worry is that this is the beginning of the end of our beautiful highway lined with live oaks, and that will soon look just like going to all the other barriers, the islands in the area, with Dollar Generals and grocery stores and gas stations lined the whole way down to the beach. I know the residents have an issue, and I feel for you, and I want to resolve that somehow. Thank you.
My name is Scott Burgess. I'm at 8131 Edisto Oak Lane. I'm directly across from this proposed Dollar General, and I'm against the rezoning in general. I agree with everybody who said why they're against it up to this point. I would add that this National Scenic Byway, the one of 4, there are no Dollar Generals on any scenic byway in this state. It currently doesn't comply with the existing master plan. The future master plan doesn't matter. We're working with this master plan, and we should stick to it. This is also our island, and the Ace Basin is one of the only dark sky places. Dark sky meaning there's no overhead lights. When you look at it from the satellite map, it's dark. And Dollar General is going to have 24/7 lights on, interior and exterior. This threatens, we only have 2 gas stations on the island. There's one on the beach, but on the island there's 2 gas stations. You put a Dollar General right next to it, it's going to compete with that gas station. Gas stations don't make their money off that gas. They make their money off what they sell in the station, inside. And so that Dollar General is going to directly put pressure on that, and we'll lose a gas station. Why can't the end market do the same thing that this Dollar General is proposing? They've got a lot of excess space inside that store and only like 4 aisles of shelves. It's on a dangerous curve. I live right across from it. It's a blind curve coming this way, a blind curve coming that way. You're going to put some trees up, going to make it even worse. What else is on here? We do have a problem, mid-island. We do need something there. I don't disagree with that, but the Dollar General is not the answer. We need some sort of pharmaceutical help. We do need some affordable groceries. It is true that the food line is often out of things, especially in the height of tourist season. Not so much the rest of the season, but they do run out of things, and you're best just to go up to Ravenel or Hollywood to get your groceries. But this Dollar General is not a solution. Thank you, Commissioners.
Bud Skidmore, 7789 Steamboat Landing Road, lifetime resident of Edisto. I'm not going to be verbose about this. There are basically two problems. Problem number one is you've worked very hard to establish good zoning on Edisto. You have plans for future commercial. This ignores them. Problem number two is that we have a national scenic byway. I was honored to be sent to Washington, D.C. in August of 2009 when they announced it. It's a unique thing. It's something that everybody doesn't have, and it's critical to the future economy of Edisto because it brings people to Edisto who care about the beauty, nature, and history of Edisto. I'm sympathetic to the folks who are concerned about more access to food. We do have 2 food kitchens. We have several local food establishments. And the bad rap that they give to Food Line is only true in the height of the tourist season. The rest of the year, you can go down there and get what you need. I know because I do. I don't want to travel to Hollywood or Ravenel either. But it's just critical that we don't do this. We don't want to put the camel's nose under the edge of the tent and then suddenly see more and more commercial development along this corridor. Thank you very much.
My name is Lloyd Bray. I live at 7965 Russell Creek Road in Charleston County. I'm also with the Edisto Island Preservation Alliance. One of the criteria for approving a plan development is whether or not it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. A close reading of the comprehensive plan indicates that there's an authentic desire to preserve rural places for future generations. Edisto Island is an unspoiled asset that is of great value to Charleston County, visitors and tourists, and its residents. This plan development is not consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan. The Edisto Island Preservation Alliance has written a letter to the commissioners laying out our case for that in detail. Please don't kill Edisto Island with 1,000 cuts. This would be the first cut.
Good afternoon. I'm Chad Rose. I live at 8229 Edisto Oak Lane. That would be the view out my kitchen window. So when people say they live across the street, I live directly across the street. And there's 2 issues here. There's the Dollar General and then there's rezoning. My opposition is to the rezoning. Number one, it's not necessary. In the developer's own words, there's multiple places out there that are already zoned commercial property that meet his needs that he could be developing right now. It wouldn't be wasting your time, my time. The owner, the landowner, who is also a developer, he developed the lot where I own a coffee shop in Edisto Beach right now, right in a little strip mall. Well, the guy that owns the land, Mark Steedley, he developed that. He developed other places that were commercial property on Edisto. It's like he's trying to pull a fast one on not only the people that live there, but on you board members as well. So I ask you to do, if you look at history, I mean, I don't know what founding fathers or what people that created the board had in mind, but to me, the board is designed to stop exactly what they're trying to do right now, and that's pull a fast one on not only us, but you as well, because there's plenty of places. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. If he really genuinely wanted to build a Dollar General and the people of Edisto wanted to have a Dollar General, he'd be pulling the permits right now and be building it. It's not for lack of places. They're just trying to pull a fast one, the nose under the tent, the foot in the door, whatever you want to call it, because it's one sliver of a 35 acre. And I don't know if you guys have it on the thing. I sent a letter. I was the one that sent a letter saying revise the drawings because it didn't show the residential property across the street. I don't know if he revised them, but in his drawings and the ones that he did, it didn't show. It just showed a green little stripe across the street. It's very disingenuous. It's not a green stripe across the street. There's several driveways, one of them being mine. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
My name is Rosalie Crouch, and I live at 8728 Middleton Point Lane. I've been there for 20 years, and you've heard enough, and you probably know well that Edisto is a very pristine and very special place, and that we need to conserve it. I understand the need for more services as we get more people there, but I just feel this whole conversation is unnecessary because there is land zoned for commercial use now where any store could be built. And I encourage you to turn down this request. I think it's absolutely critical. I also want to state that we're all aware from the last week of what's happening with climate change. More concrete is not what we need. Thank you.
My name is Knox Kinlaw. I'm a neurosurgeon. I practiced in Atlanta for 30 years. I looked in Florida, I looked in Georgia, I looked North Carolina, a place that I wanted to live the rest of my life. I was introduced to Edisto Island. No McDonald's, no high-rises, no commercialization. I wanted peace and tranquility. So I bought 142 acres. It's presently under the Open Land Trust. It's protected forever. It will never be developed. I do have 60 acres of peanuts. I'm probably the only person here that still farms. But I enjoy the ospreys. I enjoy the owls, the birds, the beauty that I have. Sometimes I don't see a human for 3 days, but that's perfectly fine. The only thing that I ask is that we keep agriculture, and not develop everything that needs to be developed. I have no problem with building stores. I believe they should be built. But the question is, why do we have rules and laws to govern where we put these things? I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My name is Leland Wanamaker. I live at 2232 Laurel Hill Road on Edisto Island. My father bought a place out there in 1967, and his picture's up here on one of these walls right here, and he's staring at me. And I'll state this, sorry, couldn't resist that. I admire y'all's patience and y'all's ability to listen to everybody. He did that, and he told me so many times, son, I'm here for the people. So thank you. The next thing I'm going to state is he's notorious for one question at repeated county council meetings. He said, is there a cost to Charleston County? And I'm going to request that y'all do more than just look at this individual site here, because I know that there is a water property, water land just down the road from this place. And this past weekend, it flooded. Well, with that flooding, Charleston County is going to have to absorb the cost, if the developer won't do it, to channel those waters to go somewhere onto the state's waters. So your MS4 study is going to state it meets the requirements. The question is, where is that water going to go? You're going to have to probably put in a box culvert or two under Highway 174 at cost to the taxpayers. The next question is, Edisto Island is notorious for power failures. I've had several of them in the recent past, and they're rather obnoxious, and they take a long time and all that. But you're going to put a big load on the Dominion Power circuit out there. And my question is, to benefit the people of Edisto, has Dominion Power, or will Dominion Power be quizzed about their ability to support this new development here? I kind of task y'all with that, with doing that, because if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. That would benefit the people on Edisto, and not just from building something here, but from putting things in place. The other thing to note with that is this field was present when I grew up there in 67 and 30 seconds.
And everybody to 2 minutes. We've been here a long time.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I know. I think this is the last guy.
I'm Gerald Harum. I live at 8390 Chisholm Plantation Road on Edisto Island in the Middleton Plantation subdivision. And I'm here to say that I am opposed to this particular development. I do support, however, the people who want to have more conveniences and more options for buying groceries and things of that nature closer to where they live. However, this particular development at this particular location is totally wrong. This is a very dangerous road. Safety issues should disqualify this particular development at this location. A very dangerous curve, 55-mile-an-hour, 2-lane highway. Most of the people that drive this highway do not drive at 55 miles an hour. I can guarantee you that. They drive much, much faster than that. Law enforcement in the area is inadequate. I can hardly count on one hand in the 10 years that I've lived at my residence in which a police officer has stopped someone for violating traffic laws. It just is very rare to occur. So I'm asking you not to put my family in danger by approving this development at this location. It's a high traffic location. This would only add to that problem. And it's a very, very bad idea. So I hope you would give the safety issues some consideration in making this judgment. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting in this room at 5 o'clock. So I think you're the last one, so chop chop.
Robert Renner, 510 Jungle Road, Edisto Beach. On May 2nd, 2022, I participated in a conference call with the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department to discuss the 2023 update on the 2018 Charleston County Comprehensive Plan. As that was only 4 months ago, I would assume that the County Zoning and Planning Department would have brought up this change in zoning at our meeting. Instead, I heard from the department that there was no new plans or zoning changes for Edisto Island. I strongly believe this proposed change will not benefit Edisto Island community, but will potentially cause degradation to the natural beauty and value to our community. It will set a rezoning precedence that may not be able to be stopped in the future. There are plenty of existing commercial zone properties that developers can use for the proposed Dollar General. Please reject this request.
Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Thad Days. I grew up on Edisto all my entire life, and I currently live at 8303 Scott Creek Drive. My siblings and I own property at 8720 Peters Point Road, which has been in my family for over 120 years. In 1981, when I left to go to college, I told my mother and father that I will only come back to Edisto to visit them and never live there. After one semester at Carolina, I realized that I will live on Edisto one day and will return there. And then I remember my father laughing at me saying, "Son, you were wrong, you will be back." From 1981 till 2014, I sought a way to get back to Edisto. I spent most of my entire career with the National Education Association living in Washington, D.C. But in 2014, I was able to move back to Edisto to be with my aging mother. And I live there now. I retired in 2017. I have a burial plot for my wife and I never plan to leave Edisto again. So I'm asking you here to oppose the rezoning. I'm asking for you to oppose it because there are other commercial properties currently on Edisto. And if truth be told, I'll be asking you to revoke those properties. We don't need any more properties like that on Edisto. I'm asking you to preserve our cultural integrity of the island that I live on, the island that I love, the island that I will be buried on. Thank you.
Good evening. I heard you said
Yeah.
that was going to be the last one, so I only need 15 seconds, maybe 20. My name is Williams, Carl Williams, and I was born on Edisto Island back in 1956, okay? And I've heard basically what everybody else said, but I would ask the Planning Commission, take in consideration the needs of the community. Regardless of what anybody else says, take in consideration the need of the community. By the way, as you're doing that, I want you to go back and take a look into history a little bit, okay? Because back in the 50s, in the 60s, there was a grocery store sitting right there. There was, in fact, a grocery store, okay? So go back and take a look at that. I don't know how it was zoned back then, whether it was important, the zoning at that point in time, but the islanders back in the 50s and the 60s, the only grocery store they had to go to was sitting right there. So take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming out and speaking. So this is how we learn. But as I said, there is a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting here at 5 o'clock. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so how can we keep people from talking?
He's saying what?
I